Too many people in America fear their government, and the government is being run by too many powerful agencies like the IRS and others. I think it's time the people take the country back through their representative government.
Politician living on that hill, living in that life of luxury on we the people's bill. Don't have a clue how the other half lives, and that is a shame. It's time to stop the tyranny. You keep pushing through your bills. Going for revolution, going for it now. It's time to save our Constitution while we still got the guns in our hands.
Hi, welcome to Freedom TV. I'm Renee Kimball, and sit back and relax. You're going to have a great hour. Today we have Jeff Leland, and we're going to be talking about debt relief, how to get out of debt. Not through some of the scams, but through the real way. And you're going to find some really incredible information in the next hour. Before we get to Jeff, however, I do have a couple of things I would like to say. One of the things I'd like to alert you about is a ballot measure coming up. It's 2694. You won't find it on the state website, but it's all about getting money for the children. Well, in 2003, 2633 put together a little organization called Children's Investment Fund. And this is more or less a clearinghouse that takes a lot of our tax dollars at about $60 per household and funnels it out to the right organizations for the right way of treating children. They have lots of wonderful things on their websites. However, my estimation of this ballot measure is vote it down, vote it away. If you want to give to these organizations that are listed as the ones that this overall umbrella organization delivers the money to, then give to them directly. Don't have it filtered through yet another government bureaucracy where some of the money is filtered off for the infrastructure. If you think these are good things, great. If you don't think they're a good thing, like I don't think they're a good thing, I don't want money taken out of my pocket to go where somebody else decides my charitable gifting dollars should go. And in aid of that, I'd also like to talk a little bit more about a situation here in Oregon and children. The Christine family came to Oregon in 2001. They came on a family holiday. They were in the family van, and I think there were like 4 children. And all of a sudden, one of the children had a little problem, a little boo-boo on her head. Well, people called DHS and Department of Human Services, and the kids were whisked away from the couple. The couple were outraged and incensed, as anyone would be, when their children were taken away from them, and they tried to steal them back. They tried to get them from the state and take them out of the state. Well, unfortunately, they were caught. They were incarcerated. Nothing was ever found that they ever mistreated any of the children. What they're in prison for is kidnapping their own children. Several years ago, Ruth Christine gave birth to their 5th child in jail, right after she was incarcerated. And the way she was giving birth was she was shackled and she was handcuffed while she was giving birth. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that's a pretty bad way to be giving birth to a child. The child was never allowed to nurse, never received colostrum, and was whisked away without ever being near her mother. So the Christines are still incarcerated, and there's a website that you can see on the screen right now. If you can send a message to either Ruth or Brian at this time, it would be greatly appreciated, because they've been in prison for 7 years, and it is only recently that Brian Christine has been allowed to see his children. I have a picture. I'm not sure we'll be able to get up too close, but there's a picture of Brian and his daughter after 7 years. This is the first time they've been together. And it was a very moving experience for Brian and a very hopeful experience, but it was also very depressing. So if you have an opportunity, go to the website, find the Brian and Ruth Christine, and do drop them a note. It's something that you can do and have your voice heard. Well, we're going to go off into our regular segment of Surviving and Thriving, and this time it's going to be Jean Ward, and we're going to be talking a little bit about parachute cord. Amazing things that you can do with parachute cord. So now we're going to Surviving and Thriving with Jean Ward, parachute cord.
There's only one kind of cord that I recommend for your survival kit, and that's parachute cord, also known as 550 cord. The reason I recommend it, like a lot of other things that I recommend, is because it's multi-usefulness. Inside of a casing on real parachute cord, you're going to find 7 strands of inner core. Each of these inner cores is 35 pounds tensile strength. More than sufficient for fishing line, for snaring, even for lashing shelters. Even the inner core is twisted. It's a 3-strand twist, so you can actually separate these and get real fine thread or floss or whatever you need to use it for. Now, I generally recommend about 50 feet of this, which is this little bundle right here. And with the 7 strands of inner core and the casing, you're actually talking about 400 feet of usable rope. Hypothermia, which is often referred to as exposure, is far and away the #1 leading cause of death in the wilderness. You simply cannot allow yourself to get wet and cold out here. The consequences are deadly. A full body-size plastic bag is both a quick and effective means of keeping hypothermia from becoming a life-threatening emergency. This high-density bag will easily fit in one of your back pockets. Personally, I prefer them to the much-touted space blankets for a variety of reasons. They're far more durable than the basic space blanket, and they're much more accessible. You can get them over your body 10 times faster than a folded-up piece of tin foil. They can also be utilized in so many different ways to save lives out here, and at a fraction of the cost. These highly versatile bags can also be used to make an excellent tube tent that is as quick as it is easy to construct. First, find 2 trees that are at least 8 feet apart. Next, cut off the end of the bag. Now, watch closely as I demonstrate how to tie a timber hitch around the trunk of this tree. The height's going to be about 2.5 feet off the ground. It's a friction knot, so the tighter I pull it, the better it will hold. Before I tie it to the other tree, I need to pass it through the plastic bag first. The knot that I'm going to tie at this end is called a trucker's hitch. Before I bring the line around the tree, I will tie a slip knot about a foot away. Then I bring the line around the trunk and through the slip knot, and then put some muscle into it and pull it real tight. Right at the point where the line bends back through the loop, I will pinch this between my fingers to keep it from slipping. Now I form a loop. I take the loop over the taut line and then through itself, kind of like tying your shoes, and then snug it up and throw a half hitch over it to keep it from slipping. With a strip of duct tape about the length of my finger, I secure one side of the plastic to the line. I'll repeat this process on the other side, stretching the bag fairly tight, while making sure that the tape won't slip on the line. Before I anchor the bottom of the shelter, I will first need to cut 4 small stakes. I start by tying a clove hitch around one of the stakes. The 4 stakes will be placed about 3 feet apart and about a foot beyond the end of the bag. I run the line through the bag and again tie a clove hitch to the opposite side. To measure the width, I use a 3-foot piece of parachute cord. That's the distance between my fingertips and my sternum. This will help me to determine where the stakes will be located. Running lines all the way through the tube tent is the most effective method I have found to keep the shelter tight and secure in high wind conditions. I complete my makeshift shelter by attaching all 4 bottom corners the same as I did on the tops. From start to finish, the tube tent should only take you about 20 to 30 minutes to construct. If you practice the timber hitch and the clove hitch, this 6.5 by 3 foot shelter will keep you dry and out of the wind. It's a great shelter for those survivors who wait until it's dark before deciding to build one. If I want to move up in the world and make a larger shelter, I can do that.
Hi, welcome back to Freedom TV. And today we're talking to Jeff Leland of Integrity Debt Relief Services, and we're going to talk to you about debt. Thanks, Jeff, for being here, and I couldn't have you on the show at a more appropriate time.
Boy, yeah, you got that right. It's a mess out there,
yeah.
Let's face it.
And it's not a pretty scene.
It's not a pretty scene, you know, and interestingly enough, it's never been. For people in debt, it's not a pretty sight. And right. I can say that because I've been there.
Yeah, really?
Well, sure, because, I mean, like most Americans, I was under-earning for the amount of debt that I was carrying.
Right. So this is a true story here.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, tell us about your background.
Yeah. I mean, how did I get into the debt relief business?
Really.
I was in debt, like I say, like most Americans are, and I had a business. Self-employed people are particularly vulnerable to the debt trap because, you know, we want to make the business work. And we have a tendency to go ahead and finance that business using personal credit cards and such, and I was exactly doing that. And in the end, for me, I found that I was treading water a mile from the beach and not getting anywhere and starting to sink, as most people eventually, you know, get to that realization.
Exactly.
So I started doing some research. I needed to get rid of this debt, and just to make a long story short, in my case, I settled on a legal administrative process, and we're going to talk about those a little later in the show.
Right.
And going through that process gave me the tools and information to really find out the truth about a lot of things that you don't see in the mainstream media. And one of the reasons I'm really glad to be on this particular show is I can talk about those things. Yeah. And that's a good thing.
Right. Although we do have a disclaimer.
Oh, thank you.
There we go.
Yeah, thanks.
Have to do the disclaimer.
I did want to just let the audience know that I am not an attorney. I'm not a licensed CPA or financial advisor. So please don't take anything that I say on this show or anywhere else you might talk to me as legal, tax, or financial advice. So there, I've now given you my disclaimer. Yeah. So again, it allowed me to find out some truths that I was certainly not aware of before. And now I really try to educate people on how the system works and why so many people are in debt, and give them a little bit of a handle on how they got there and how they can get out.
Right, and that really is what people need, because when you're in debt and you're treading water, and some people are like 10 miles from the beach today, you don't even know where to start. And there is not a day on my computer that I do not get 20, 30, 40 things that you can just dump immediately because it says debt, debt,
yeah, it's very
all
common
down
now.
the line.
Well, and this is, of course, you know, your spam email marketers are always on the forefront of whatever is current that people are going to click on. And boy, nothing's more current right now than the whole debt issue. So yeah, that's why everybody's mailboxes are just filled with that stuff.
Okay, well, we have a couple of slides that we'd like to show. We're going to start out with something humorous, because even though this is not a very funny subject, and especially for those who are in debt, This cartoon was great. I really appreciated this cartoon because this is true. Delivering credit card applications at your grave site.
Well, yeah, and of course this cartoon is basically referencing, and maybe it's not quite as true now with the financial meltdown,
Right.
but the ease of
Yeah.
credit, right? I mean, there's jokes about people getting credit cards for their dogs.
Yeah.
You know, you just
There
put
you
a
go.
name on the application and send it in, and pretty much you're going to get some credit. And so that's what this cartoon's about.
This was a great cartoon. And the next one we have is the reasons people fail. I'd like to spend some time on this because
Yeah.
these are some of the really hardcore things that happen to people and cause them to get into this spiral
Yeah.
of going
Yeah, well,
crazy.
let's look at number one. You know, we've been taught to be consumers. Now, we have a consumer society. We have a consumer-based system. There's a lot to that question that I really probably won't have time to get into, but I want to talk a little bit later about consumerism and
Right.
how that feeds the beast,
Right.
right? We need consumerism to feed the system that we have, and we are taught to consume. And
that-
we've been given tools to do it on an unparalleled scale.
Exactly.
The credit card being probably the most powerful consumer tool out there.
Okay, let's look at a couple more of
Okay.
the reasons that people fail. We'll just go through these quickly if you can.
Well, okay, the monthly payment trap is really what I was just talking about.
Only
There-
6 easy payments of.
Well, it's treading the water, right?
Right.
Treading water a mile from the beach. It's comfortable for a while. The payment is okay. But
then it
eventually, you know, you realize you're not getting anywhere.
Exactly.
You know, even if you're lucky enough to keep the payment as it is, which most people you have to realize are not,
Right.
because they continue to use the card.
Right.
And the payment goes up incrementally until there's a point where they're starting to realize that they're pretty uncomfortable.
Exactly.
And they can only tread water so long before they're going to need a buoy.
Exactly. And that is
So that's the
really
payment.
the monthly payment.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed is that it's a monthly payment from a bunch of little different places.
Right.
It looks like, oh, it's only $10 here, and it's only
Right.
$15 here, and it's only $20 here. And then when you start adding it up, it starts to be more than your paycheck.
You know, the other thing about the monthly payment is the credit card companies have all of these little traps built into their
Exactly.
into their system. One of those traps was the 2% payment. You would only be required to pay 2% of the balance of the card, which is a pretty low payment. And they did make some changes during the Clinton era to raise that to 3%
Right.
to supposedly get people more out of debt. But that was part of it. You could have a very high debt and have a very low payment, $50.
Right, but you're not paying off the debt.
Nope.
You're just paying the interest.
Right.
And that's basically it. Okay, let's just go back to the last. Well, I think there's 3 or 4 of them. If you wanna
Well,
just-
addictive nature of credit card and spending, that's what we were just talking about. It's a tool built for the consumer so that you
Right.
will consume, and it works. Inability to delay gratification, why would you? You've got the tool,
Yeah.
right?
Right now, I want it
Yeah.
now.
You know, following get-rich-quick schemes is the American idea that it's okay to carry the debt because next year my business is going to do better.
Yes.
Things are going to be, my house is going to be worth more money. And if I need to, you know, access that cash, I can do that.
Exactly.
And as you can see, not.
This is not happening.
Not
And
happening.
Was that the last one
I think
up there?
there was one more.
One more up there?
I don't
Can we
remember.
look at the
I didn't
last
see
one?
what it was.
And it was.
Oh yeah, following conventional advice, and this again is, you know, getting back to what the mainstream media promotes, and that's something I do want to talk about.
Right.
And you know, staying focused, and staying focused really is just focusing on the idea that you really want to get out of debt. Do you have the motivation to even try? You'd be amazed how many people I talk to that have a very high level of debt. They're comfortable treading that water a mile from the beach.
And they don't have the impetus to.
They just
keep
don't
going.
have the motivation to do anything about it. And, you know, I tell people all the time, you know, you've got to start swimming. You've got to start swimming. There might be some coral. There might be a shark or two in the water.
But you're going to have
But
to
you know
start
what?
doing it
You've got to
sometime.
start doing some strokes here and heading for that beach.
Right.
Because if you don't start now, it's not going to happen.
And we're going to give you the next 3 slides that we're going to look at are going to give us an example of what happens when you have a small debt and you buy a small item, well, relatively small, it's not a house,
Right.
but say a $2,000 couch.
There you go.
Let's look at our...
So here's what people don't realize. You pay $2,000 on your card to buy something, in this case, we'll say a couch. You've got a minimum monthly payment that's very low. And I ask people all the time when I'm talking with them, and I speak with people all over the country, East Coast, West Coast, you know, South, North, all over. have you done the math? And this is just a great question to throw at people.
Have you done
the math?
Right.
Invariably, they haven't done the math. And in this particular case, you know, if you just follow the bank's plan, and I always tell people there's two plans. There's your plan, and there's the bank's plan. and what's your plan?
Yeah.
And if there's a silence on the other end of the phone, guess what? You're on the bank's plan. That's the bank's plan.
Right.
30 years
and 5
months. So
after that time, let's look at what your investment looks like.
Yeah.
Here you go. Here's your brand new couch.
and that's not even considering the price that you actually paid for that couch.
Right.
You really paid $10,000 for that couch. That couch is gone, and you've bought 2 more.
Exactly. This is a pie chart of. This is kind of interesting. I found this interesting. Of 100 people, this is kind of how it shakes out as to who has what.
Right. Well, this is the average statistic for people reaching the age of 65 and actually having any hope of being financially free. It's really only 4%. And that's a sad commentary.
Right.
But it is
100 years ago, nearly everybody.
Well, we didn't have okay, this is where we need to talk about the system itself, and we'll do that in just 2 seconds here. Let's go to the next one. I guess maybe that was it.
I thought there was one more.
Maybe not. Oh, I think it's the cartoon.
The cartoon. We have one more cartoon at the end, which is, the plastic years.
I want to just address what you said about it being 100 years ago.
Right.
Which brings up one of the core items that people need to understand, and I educate people on this all the time. We are not on the same system as we were on 100 years ago.
Right.
One of the things I like people to understand is what is the basis of our monetary system, right? What's the dollar backed by? I ask people this often, and I get a variety of answers. So the old timers might say that it's backed by gold, right?
Right.
It's not. Younger people will say something like, well, nothing, right?
Exactly.
Which is on a certain level that's true, but it's not really. The fact is we have what's called a debt-based fiat currency. That means that the money we use is simply evidence of somebody else's debt.
So it doesn't really exist until somebody borrows money.
Exactly.
Okay.
An example of that is a Federal Reserve note, right? It says Federal Reserve note. It's a promissory note from the United States government to the Federal Reserve. It's a debt receipt for the amount on the face of the bill.
Right.
Another example would be I might write you a check for $20. Well, that check is simply evidence of my bank's debt to you for $20.
Right. So it's not really.
It's all debt-based.
It's all debt-based. There's no real money.
Right.
Like if you have a gold coin and I give you a gold
substance
coin.
versus money of account, they call that.
Right.
But the point being is, and this is what people don't get, without debt, there's no money. The whole system is using debt as currency. It's under the Uniform Commercial Code. We have a whole new law form that was brought into effect in 1933 based on House Joint Resolution 192, which was the abrogation of the gold standard. This is when gold went away, and we brought in the Federal Reserve. We are basically leasing our currency from a private corporation.
So we're paying this private corporation a fee
to use
borrow
their currency.
Worthless pieces of paper that are devaluing as we speak.
Now,
this is a deal.
Understand why that is. I mean, one thing that people don't ever ask and the schools don't teach is how is it we're not using constitutional money, yet the Constitution has not been amended, nor has that been repealed?
And speaking of the Constitution, this is a good point for a break. We're gonna take a short break here, and we're gonna come back and talk to you a little bit more about both the constitutionality of money and also, if you're in debt, what can you do? This is the show all about solutions. So we're going to take a short break, and we're going to hear from a gentleman, speaking of the Constitution, Thomas Paine. And this is a YouTube video, and it's called The Second American Revolution. So sit back and enjoy Thomas Paine with The Second American Revolution.
World history. Not one survived a multi. It's the uniculture that is your strength. one country, one culture, one language. Is it common sense that 84% of the people want to make English the official language of America, but your majority political party espouses insanity, ignores the people, and says no? Is it common sense that 53 countries, mostly in Africa, have declared English to be their national language, and the party who declares we will unite you says press 2 for Spanish? Is it common sense to adopt your new national religion of diversity when the very word means disunity? We founded a country on similarities, not diversities. One country, one culture, one language. You cry out for unity, but is it common sense to continue to identify yourselves by your ethnicities and not your nationalism? White-America, Black-America, Chinese-America, Hispanic-American, gay and lesbian-American, the Black Caucus, the Hispanic Caucus, the Women's Caucus. You want unity? Change your language. Isn't it time, once again, we all became just plain Americans? Or is that too much common sense? Is it your new common sense now to stand up and cheer when a presidential candidate wants to hand over the health care system to that same government who has run Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and 12 other entitlement programs into bankruptcy? A government bureaucracy who can't run a railroad, your airports, secure your borders, or find 15 to 20 million illegal aliens. That same government that allows Islamic women to take their driver's license picture wearing a neck scarf covering their face because it offends their belief. What's next? Allowing the Ku Klux Klan wearing their hoods? Is it common sense to bankrupt the American Treasury? Fighting wars for countries whose silent majority won't fight for themselves? Your debt is now $9.4 trillion. Is it common sense to continue to give away $9 billion of taxpayer money to unfriendly countries in foreign aid, including $2 billion a year to Egypt, who votes against the United States 80% of the time in the United Nations? All this while your own inner cities crumble. 40% of your high school graduates can only read or write at a 4th grade level. You have to import people from China and India for your high-tech industry because you haven't got enough smart people in America. And New Orleans and the flood victims of Iowa continue to be forgotten. This is madness. Lay down your misplaced global burden and rebuild America first. You can't support the world while neglecting your own country. Are you unifying the country with common sense when both of your presidential candidates cry out, we must show compassion for the 15 to 20 million invaders from south of your border? But not one word of compassion for the overburdened American taxpayer who is forced to subsidize the invaders by paying over $250 billion of their hard-earned money to establish America as the welfare department of a failed, corrupt foreign country. Are you unifying your country with common sense by sending out your utility bills and your Social Security checks in Spanish? Legal and illegal immigrants have no incentive to learn your unifying language because you make it easy for them not to assimilate. How many of you write in big letters across that bill, English only, please, and send it back? Stop bending over backwards to accommodate every other culture but your own. Is it common sense to allow your activist judges to ignore your history, your culture, your Declaration of Independence, and every other founding document to remove God from public life? And endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, their creator, not the ACLU, not the will of the atheist, or the anti-Americans that sit on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in San Francisco. Separation of church and state, yes. Separation of God from public life, never intended by your founding fathers. Is it common sense that the very political party who claims to be the party of the people and shouts, we will bring change, consistently stops all common sense legislation to secure your borders, establish workplace verification, and stop taxpayer money for illegals? They call themselves progressive global thinkers. We had another word for them in 1776. We called them traitors. This happened all once before. 232 years ago, it led to revolution and thousands of dead in the streets. It will happen again unless you take back America now. Join the grassroots movement of the Second American Revolution, not of guns and violence, but pressure, pressure, pressure on your non-representing representatives who created these problems in the first place. This is the most important phone number in your democracy, the Congressional Switchboard. Pick up your phone every day, every hour if need be, and call your representatives and tell them in no uncertain language to listen to the silent majority or else be thrown out on their hindquarters. It's toll-free. and your taxes pay for it. Would you stand by and watch your family perish when you have the power to save them? Of course not. Then why are you doing that to your own country? 1-866-340-9281. Perhaps you allow all this destructive, uncommon sense out of a distorted notion of tolerance. Remember what Aristotle said, tolerance is the last virtue of a dying society. You are tolerating the behavior that is destroying you. This wine was once rich, highly desired and admired. But when you dilute it with enough water, it stops being anything. Take back America now. Choose to be part of the Second American Revolution. Pressure, pressure, pressure. No presidential candidate, no political party can save you now. Only an aroused citizenry will turn this uncommon sense around. And he or she who does nothing now is helping them to destroy America. My name is Thomas Paine, and I approve of this message. I only hope to God you will too.
Hi, welcome back to Freedom TV. There's a phone number for you to call. We're talking about debt with Jeff Leland. And Jeff, I wanted to ask you, if somebody's really in debt, really in debt, where do they start?
Good question. One thing that I do notice a lot is if I'm talking to someone on the phone, oftentimes they'll say, well, you know, I've basically got that covered. I'm in a debt relief program. Okay. What kind of program are you in? Silence. Is it debt settlement? Are you in credit counseling? Did you consolidate? I think I consolidated. Okay. Is that a brand new loan? They don't know.
They don't have any idea what they did.
I have had people fax me the contract for their program so I could tell them what they're in. This is how bad it is. So it's very confusing. Marketing out there for debt relief is horrendous. You hear these, you know, debt elimination, when really what they're selling is debt repackaging.
So it's just taking the same old debt, packing it back up, and
putting it in a new package and handing it off. And a classic example of that is let's refinance the house so you can be debt free. Let's take our $25,000 of credit card debt. We'll remortgage the house. Now you've got, you know, zero credit card debt, but you know what? You've just taken your unsecured debt. You've repackaged it onto your house. Now if you can't make your house payment, you lose the house. This is a big problem.
Right.
What happens, and this is a statistical fact, is that 80% of Americans who repackage their debt are in as much or more debt within 3 to 5 years.
Really?
This is how people lose their homes.
Right.
They do it once, they do it a second time, the third time is bankruptcy.
Right, exactly.
So let me just outline for you what some of the different programs are so people understand. I kind of categorize this into 3 categories. There's the mainstream programs. These are the ones you hear about. These are the ones in the yellow pages. These are the ones that Susie Orman talks about and that kind of a thing. Then there's sort of the quasi-non-mainstream that you don't hear a lot about, but is being used a lot. And then there's completely out-of-the-box processes, like what I did, which is legal administrative process. We'll talk about that. So let's talk about the mainstream real quick.
Okay.
These are the programs you've heard: credit counseling, consolidation, refinance the house. Let's do a roll-up type process, a budgeting roll-up type process, which can be great.
Why do these people do this, though? I mean, are they the ones who are getting the money out of it? How are they getting their money?
Okay, good question. Great question. Let's look at consumer credit counseling. This is a great mainstream program that everybody uses that has about a 70 or 80% dropout rate. Doesn't work.
Wow.
It's paid for by the banks, actually. They actually pay, it's a consumer-friendly collection effort on behalf of the banks. They market it as consumer credit counseling, nonprofit consumer credit counseling, Christian consumer credit counseling, whatever. The fact is the bank kicks them back a payment for every amount that they collect from you. Now, they're supposedly going to help you reduce interest rate, change penalties. Sometimes they can do that. Sometimes they don't. Plus, you know, they're taking a fee on top.
They're taking a fee. That's how they get the money.
So this is where people will say, well, I'm consolidating. They're sending one payment to the credit counseling company, and the credit counseling company sends it out to all the banks. They get a kickback from all the banks, plus they tack a fee onto the money that you're sending them.
Right. And with those systems, my sister had one of those.
That's not consolidation at all, but people think it is. It's marketed as such.
Right. And those can be really dicey because my sister was in one of those, and she missed one payment after 2.5 years. Boom, the whole thing was up for grabs
Deals
again.
off.
Deals off.
Right.
And then what was the second one that you said? That's the mainstream.
Let's talk about just a few more mainstream ones. Consolidation is an actual second loan. It doesn't have to be on your home. One way to consolidate would be to refinance your house.
Okay.
Another way to consolidate would just be a simple unsecured loan. Again, you're repackaging the same money.
Right.
Just into a different interest rate or something. Now, instead of a mile from the beach treading water, you're a little bit closer.
Right.
And these are not things I recommend for most people. I have to, talk to somebody and see exactly what their situation is. Some of these mainstream ideas are not bad. I wouldn't recommend consolidation. I wouldn't recommend credit counseling. The one that I do like and that I actually do market some is the roll-up process, which is a very in-the-box budgeting program that allows people to get their debt paid off quicker with less interest. And it works like a consolidation in that you pull everything from one account with one automatic payment. And that only works, though, for people that have money. I mean, this is for somebody that has a steady income that is actually able to pay their debt, but they're not good at managing their money.
Okay.
So, for that person, that kind of a program is a good program.
Well, what would be something that you would recommend, like for the average person out there who's got maybe $10,000, $20,000?
I would actually have to speak with and see what their specific situation is.
So it really is specific.
It really is, because.
So what's the first person? If a person was in debt, what would be the first thing that they could do? Get all their papers together, or where would they even start?
I know where people are based on how much debt they have, whether they're current or behind on that debt, if they have available credit or not. Tells me a lot. What's their financial picture now? Did you just get out of surgery?
Oh, okay.
Did you just lose your job?
So
have you just been downsized?
It's really a combination of looking at all kinds of things that are involved. All kinds of things,
yeah.
With
and then say, well,
details.
geez, based on what you've told me, you need to do something really aggressive. You don't have the money to keep these payments going, maybe.
Right.
Or sounds to me like you're in a good situation. If you just added $50 or $100 a month to your debt, we could roll that up, and you would have your mortgage paid off in 10 years.
Right.
And that's the beauty of a roll-up, is you can do mortgages, cars, boats, everything. And everybody gets paid, everybody's happy, it just gets done quicker.
Right.
Okay, but let's talk about somebody that doesn't have that option.
Yeah.
That middle kind of quasi-mainstream process, which I also market, is debt settlement. That's kind of become quite mainstream now. There's over 6,000 debt settlement companies in America.
And then debt settlement is where you cut a deal with the people that you owe.
You're cutting a deal.
Okay.
Most people think they're cutting a deal with the bank. They're not. What happens with debt settlement is ultimately you're defaulting on the debt in the eyes of the bank and on your credit report and such. However, by law, the banks are required to write debt off at 6 months. It has to go off their books. So they'll do that. And then what they'll do is they'll sell it to a collection company.
Oh, I see. They'd sell the debt off.
That sale is simply a contract between the collection company and the bank. It has nothing to do with you. However, the collection company is going to come back to you and get you to basically solidify their contract with the bank. So that's why you get all the calls, that's why you get the intimidation, and they're coming in saying, look, you got to pay us some money or we're going to take your house. And they'll say all kinds of illegal things, of course. The point is, with settlement, you're going to settle with that collection company.
So they're the ones who really own the debt. They've bought it from the bank.
They've bought it from the bank, and that, again, is just a contract between them and the bank, where the bank says, hey, I'll agree to sell you this person's debt, and they say, okay, we'll agree to buy it. But it technically has nothing to do with you.
Right.
However, it's all by assumption, right? We assume the collection company can come in and make a collection on that debt, and so did the courts, by the way. Without your rebuttal, it's all assumed. And that's, again, that's for our legal administrative remedies. But for settlement, you continue to make your payment. You just don't make it to the credit card company. You put it in savings. And when you have about half in that savings of your lowest card, you go to that collection company and you offer them the half, or less if they'll take it. So this is basically,
you can cut out the middle person by going directly to the credit card company.
Well, no, that's not my point. You're not going to the credit card company.
Oh, okay.
You're going to the collection agency.
Right.
So what I market for that is basically an information packet that allows you the knowledge that you would need to do that deal yourself, or if you don't want to do it yourself, then we can help you do it.
Right.
But that's debt settlement. It's basically a good thing for a lot of people, because it takes away the interest rates, it takes away the penalties, all that goes out the window. You basically are just paying principal and only half of it.
So you don't get this interest on interest on interest on interest on interest keep going. It all stops right there.
Because it's whatever the deal is that you make with that collection company, and they buy it for 10 cents on the dollar.
Right.
You settle for 40, they're happy, you're happy. It's all good. Now, there's some bad things about settlement, though, too. And that is there's no protection for the consumer. You're swinging in the wind. If one of those guys wants to, pursue a lawsuit, he can certainly do that. And you really have not got anything set up as a protection.
Right.
So all your only recourse there is to just let the attorney know if that you are saving for a settlement and, can we work a deal? So there are some positive and negatives about all debt relief programs.
Right. Well,
and that's the point.
That's the whole thing about debt.
Right.
The best way to handle debt is never get there in the first place.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So
and cash is king.
Yeah.
Let's all be kings. Because if you don't have cash and you're not king, then you are a debt slave.
Right, and that's the problem with debt is no matter how many rights you think you have, if you're in debt, you really don't have too many rights at all.
It gets sketchy unless you are knowledgeable, and that's a great lead-in to legal administrative process.
Right.
Let's talk about that.
Okay, I think we will
Break?
talk about that.
Okay.
Yes, we're gonna take a short break. We have a few little breaks that we do. Right now, we're going to take you to a video about a group of performing artists who are going to be coming here in January, and they're called Divine Performing Arts. Now, let me tell you, these people are incredible. It is the most exciting thing that I have ever seen in my life. And I wanted to show you a little bit about the group that's coming. And there'll be a website that'll come up afterward, and I'll talk a little bit more about it. But right now, get ready for some incredible performing. So this is Divine Performing Arts. And this is for the New Year's Gala, the Chinese New Year's Gala that's going to be happening in January. So this is Divine Performing Arts.
Heavenly music, breathtaking dances, enchanting landscapes, and timeless legends.
Was wonderful.
The show was great. Terrific in all ways.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful.
I would like to come back and see it again.
China was once called the land of the divine. In ancient China, every member of society, from emperors to scholars to farmers, tried to live in harmony with the heavens. And in turn, heaven bestowed upon China the gifts of its culture, philosophy, painting, music, and dance. Sadly, since the 1950s, much of this divine culture has been lost under communist rule in mainland China. A revival of these lost traditions has begun. Today, nobody captures that grand essence of Chinese culture like Divine Performing Arts, the world's most celebrated assembly of Chinese dancers, singers, musicians, and performers.
For so many years, the most precious part of Chinese culture, I finally see it tonight.
The dancers, the movement, the arms, the ankles, the wrists, everything was just beautiful. So much movement, so much feeling. I could cry. That's how touching it was.
From a 32-city tour in 2007 to a 66-city tour in 2008, Divine Performing Arts has become a global phenomenon, reaching millions of audiences both live and through TV broadcasts. Its world-class performances have graced some of the world's most prestigious venues, including New York City's Radio City Music Hall, London's Royal Festival Hall, and the Kodak Theatre in Los Angeles.
was one of the most magnificent shows I've ever seen. To see a culture with so much heart, so much spirit, so much grace.
It just struck me as, wow, this is beautiful.
Great effort is put into the show to ensure the authenticity and artistic merit of the programs. Hundreds of dancers, musicians, designers, choreographers, researchers, and production specialists work tirelessly to bring the audience a grand production the world has not seen since the time of the great emperors. Witness the beauty, the artistry, and the grandeur of the human spirit in all its perfection. Divine Performing Arts.
Hi, welcome back. Jeff, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, you said to me while the short was going on that there's no better time to be debt-free than right now. How do we catalyze people into doing something? I mean, look, I'm the queen of procrastination, so I get it.
Well, I got to say that everybody reaches a point where they're going to do something, and this is what we were talking about earlier. It's a matter of comfort. As long as people are in their heads comfortable, they're not going to do anything. And the reason now is a good time is because the financial situation is starting to change. People are losing their jobs. The dollar is deflating or inflating, and people are getting uncomfortable in their heads. And so this is the point. You should have been uncomfortable a long time ago. And if this is what it takes to get people moving, then now's a great time to move.
Right. And we have an opportunity now if anyone would like to call in and has a question for Jeff in regard to debt. If you would like to give us a call, we'll have the phone numbers up on the screen and you can have your question answered.
I wanted to just recap or go back to a legal administrative process and spend just a couple of minutes on that.
Okay.
Because that is, for a lot of people, the most effective way to be rid of debt. And this is for people that might have $50,000, $100,000, $150,000.
Wow.
The reason it's so effective is because it's really just setting up a legal defense ahead of time.
Right.
So that, unlike settlement, so that if you are going to default on your debt, and some people have no choice, they're going to default.
Right.
So if you're going to default, you may as well have a legal defense set up beforehand. And there's a lot of legal defenses. You were mentioning we don't have any rights. True and not true. Actually, we have a lot of rights. It's just most people don't know about them, and the mainstream media is certainly not telling us what they are.
Okay, I think we have a phone call, so maybe it'll be about this. Caller, do you have a question?
Yes. First, I want to thank you, Jeff, for being on the air. This is a very topical program right now with today's economy. Thanks for being there.
Glad to be here.
I had my own debt issues, and I tried to get organized. Through a car accident, I had to buy a new car. Didn't have one, needed one to get to work. From learning some hard lessons, I got a 0% interest loan. So this was, pretty good. And after having some credit issues, it was really surprising to see. Your presentation so far triggered a question. I'm curious if in the world of auto finance, have you ever come across companies that will settle on a loan like mine?
Yeah, great question. The answer is no. And here's
there
why.
You go.
Obviously, and I get this all the time. This is a huge problem in America. I'm glad you brought that up, actually. Car loans, horrible. He's got a great one. Most people don't get great ones. What they usually end up is bringing in some old junker car that they owe $10,000 on, and then the dealer rolls that $10,000 into the new car. So they drive off of the lot with a brand new car that just lost 30% of its value on a loan that is 50% more than the value of the car.
Ooh.
So now we have some financial problems. We can't make the car payments. They come and repossess the car, sell it for a fraction of its already lowered value, and you get the bill.
You mean if they repossess
you get the
your
bill
car
for the excess.
Oh, really?
You bet. Now, interestingly enough, that bill we can address. using legal administrative
Oh,
process.
okay.
But you're not going to make a deal on keeping the car.
Right. So
they're going to come get the car. It's a secure
essentially,
debt.
That's it. I mean, if you default on your car loan, bye-bye with the car.
They're going to come get the car, they're going to sell it at the auction, and you're going to get the bill.
Oh,
call me when you get the bill. Yeah.
Oh, this sounds like a great
tough. That's a tough one. The car repos are really tough. There's not a lot of, there's not much you can do. Really? Except, if somebody calls me and says, man, I'm not going to be able to sell this car, I can't make the payment, I go, let them take the car.
Right.
Let them take the car. And, they're going to send you a bill.
And then it'll be up to you to see how you can roll it in.
Then you can work with
bills.
You can work with
right.
that. Either legal administrative process, which is setting up some kind of a defense against the collection agency,
right?
Or rolling it into some other program. Exactly.
Right. Now, you were speaking a little bit about the legal administrative process, and this is a means of you setting up a protection.
Yeah, let me give you an
being
example.
Sued.
There's a lot of different ones out there. Some of them are quite old. Some of them are quite novel. There's a lot of scams going on in legal administrative process.
Really?
So you
Even
really,
with those?
you really have to be careful and do your research on what it is that they're doing. But a lot of it is very consumer oriented. For instance, you have the right as a consumer to ask the bank to verify your statement. Very simple. Under the Fair Credit Billing Act. Do people do it? Hardly ever. But guess what? If you send them a notice saying, I want to have some kind of a verification of the accuracy of my statement, think about this. What are they going to use to verify the accuracy of that statement?
Your payments?
Nope. That doesn't verify the accuracy of the statement.
Oh.
The statement's generated by some big computer program. Short of them going back to every single person that you ever made a charge with and getting the actual signed receipt and showing you the original signed receipt in court, they have no way to verify it.
They have no way to verify it.
It's impossible.
Oh, I think we have another call, actually. Yes, do you have a question for Jeff?
Yes, I do. You were speaking about car loans and the problems with those. I was wondering if there was a way that a car loan can be refinanced or some way to reduce the actual payments, because I got a new car like the other gentleman, and the principal of the car is $10,000, but the total loan is $26,000. So I'm paying $16,000 in interest on a car.
Wow.
This is classic. This is what I'm talking about.
Is there a way that she can get the payments lower? Is it possible to do that?
The problem there, again, is you're paying $26,000 for a $10,000 car that if they repossess tomorrow would sell at auction for $4,000. You got choices. You could try and reconsolidate that somehow into probably some kind of a secured loan. Most banks aren't going to do that because the value of the car is way under the value of the loan. Honestly, those are the kinds of things where you just let them come and take the car.
Right. Unfortunately.
That's just one of those things you just got to get out of it.
Right. So there is a point in these situations that you get in where the actual repossession is the best option.
It can be. I don't often recommend that. I mean, I hate to say that, to let them come take the car. I mean, you should try and keep the car and maybe work with your other unsecured debt. That's oftentimes what I'll do is get rid of the unsecured credit card debt, and then you'll have more money to work with the car.
Right.
That's one way.
I see. Oh,
yeah.
I see.
See, now you have to understand too about legal administrative process. It's more risky. It's not in the box. It's not in the mainstream. You are defaulting on your debt. You're not going to make any more payments on that debt ever. And the only way that you would ever owe that money again is if they sued you, took you to court, and got a judgment.
Right.
And that's the whole point of setting up the legal defense.
Right.
They've
so
got to get through
you set up
that.
the legal defense ahead of time so that they can't do this.
Right.
Well, we
That's
have a few minutes left here. And one of the things that I would like to talk, we've got about 2 minutes left.
Okay.
In a nutshell, how do people stay out of this mess in the first place? What's the best advice you can give people?
I'll
stay out of this in the first place.
I'm a great example because, as I said, I had $50,000, $60,000 of credit card debt. I was making an $1,100 a month payment, and I was not king.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't, the cash is king kind of mental process.
Right.
Get rid of the debt. make cash king. And just in my case, I have not had a credit card for 5 years. I own 3 cars, all paid with cash.
Right.
And I pay cash. And if I can't pay cash, I don't buy it.
So basically, reassess your whole life and decide that.
Yeah.
Don't wait until later to get satisfied with what you're buying.
If you only can afford a $1,000 car, that's the only cash you have. You know what? Buy the $1,000 car. It'll get you there.
Right, and then
don't buy the $20,000 car.
You'll have the extra money. That
I don't have nice cars, but I've got cars, and I got here, and it didn't break down, and things are okay. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just have to live within your means, and if your earning power allows you to buy a nice car, buy it.
Right.
Good for you.
And if you stay within your means, then eventually you will be able to get the more expensive car because you're not going to be handing over all this extra money.
You'll be able to do it.
To somebody for nothing.
Yes.
Money
so
for
use
nothing.
it as a kickstart. Get out of the debt, and at that point, don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't get back in. So there's the deal. There's the way to stay out of debt. Get out and stay out, and don't use your credit cards. Well, this has been Freedom TV. And I'm very glad you could join us today. I hope you found something of value in this. And you can take what we do here and empower yourself to make changes in your own life. Because really, the world belongs to you. It's not the banksters who own it. It's really you. So take back the control of your life and continue using your voice. Because if you don't use your voice, you'll be letting somebody else do it. So this has been Freedom TV. Join us next week. We're going to have a surprise show for you next week. This is going to be a little different, a little outside the box. So until next week, Freedom TV. Bye-bye.
I cry for my country, for the pain that it's been through. She's been made to suffer for the profit of a few. Storm clouds are forming, winds of change now touch our shores. I hear forefathers are crying as the dream's been cruised. America.